You've probably seen them, right? Chanting in city squares, maybe at an airport. You've almost definitely heard of the Hare Krishna movement. But what if I told you that this huge global phenomenon is just one branch of a much older, much more complex tree? Well, today we're digging into the roots of that tree, the Gaudiya Math. It's an incredible story of explosive growth, a really dramatic split, and a legacy that multiplied in the most unexpected ways.
So what exactly was the Gaudiya Math? At its core, it was a monastic organization, officially set up way back in 1920. And it had one very specific goal: to get out there and spread the teachings of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. This whole school of thought follows the philosophy of a saint from the 16th century named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is absolutely central to this entire tradition. And the engine behind this entire mission? It was one man, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Now, he wasn't just, carrying on an old tradition. He was injecting it with this new energy, a vision that, for its time, was pretty radical. He wanted to cut through all the noise and focus on one single, powerful idea. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures his whole philosophy. It's all about this deep, personal relationship with a spiritual guide, a guru, as the direct path to liberation. So it's not about abstract rules or complicated rituals. It's about a real, direct, devotional connection. Okay, this is what I mean by radical. This slide really shows you just how different his approach was. See, most religious groups at the time were focused on the 4 traditional goals of life. Doing the right thing, gaining some wealth, having pleasure, and then finally, liberation. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, no, we're aiming for something else. He wanted the Gaudiya Math to focus on one single higher purpose: pseudo bhakti. That means pure, unadulterated devotion. He called it the 5th goal, a goal that went beyond all the others. And you can probably guess, this kind of laser-focused mission, well, it didn't stay small for long. It grew incredibly fast, going from a local movement in Bengal to a full-blown international organization with a truly global vision. And the groundwork for this was laid so quickly. It's pretty amazing. In 1918, he sets up the parent monastery, the Sri Chaitanya Math. Then, just 2 years later, the Gaudiya Math is officially launched in Calcutta to be the active, public-facing preaching arm. And from there, things just exploded. And when I say exploded, I am not kidding. In less than 20 years, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati established an incredible 64 branches, or maths, all across India and even beyond. I mean, think about that. 64. This was a period of just unbelievable growth. And like I said, this was never just an Indian movement. From the very early days, the mission was looking outward. Centers were set up in what was then British Burma, and by 1933, the first European preaching center opened its doors in London, with another one in Berlin following right after. But all of this incredible, centralized growth, all of it driven by this one charismatic leader, it was about to face its greatest challenge. The one thing that's inevitable for any founder-led movement was about to send shockwaves through the Gaudiya Math and change its future forever. On the very first day of 1937, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati passed away. And his death left this massive vacuum right at the top. Without its single unifying leader, arguments started almost immediately among his senior disciples about who should take over and really what the future of the entire mission should even look like. And you can see how it all played out right here on this timeline. Founded in 1920, a great run, then the founder's pivotal death in 1937. And look, after about a decade of fighting, you get the formal split in 1948. And then, much later down the line, in 1966, you see the birth of what would become its most famous descendant. So these internal arguments, they eventually got so bad, they ended up in court. And in 1948, the original Gaudiya Math was officially divided. Those 64 centers were literally split between 2 main factions. One became the Sri Chaitanya Math branch, and the other the Gaudiya mission. Both kept the work going, but now they were totally separate, independent organizations. But here is where the story gets really, really interesting. You'd think this fracture, this split, would be the death of the founder's vision. But you could actually argue it was the beginning of a whole new decentralized chapter of growth that would spread his teachings farther than he probably ever imagined. See, it wasn't just about those 2 official factions.
A lot of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati's other disciples, they felt inspired to carry the mission forward, but on their own terms. So instead of picking a side, they chose to start their very own autonomous missions. Each one was like a new seed planted from that original tree.
And pretty soon, a whole family tree of new organizations started to pop up. Look at the dates, starting in the 1940s and just continuing on for decades. New missions were founded by his direct disciples. They all carried the Gaudiya name and philosophy, but they were all operating completely on their own. And that, of course, brings us full circle to the most famous of all these offshoots, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON. It was founded in 1966 in New York City by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's original disciples. And he's the one who took the core teachings of the Gaudiya Math and successfully spread them all over the globe. So it leaves us with this pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? The original unified Gaudiya Math, the one its founder knew, well, it stopped existing after 1937. But its mission didn't die, not at all. Instead, it fractured, it decentralized, and it multiplied into dozens of new forms. And in the end, it reached a global audience far, far larger than the original ever did. It's a paradox that's really worth thinking about.